Hello, everyone. And today, we're going to talk about something that could completely change the way you learn and use English. We're going to explore the best ways to become truly fluent in English, moving step by step from a complete beginner level all the way to an advanced, confident speaker. This isn't just about memorizing grammar rules or cramming long vocabulary lists. This is about building English into your daily life, training your brain to think in English, and practicing in ways that actually stick. If you stay with me from start to finish, you're not just going to hear advice, you're going to have a clear path you can follow and practical exercises you can start using today. When you're at the beginning of your English learning journey, it can feel overwhelming. There are so many words you don't know, so many grammar structures you haven't learned, and sometimes it's hard to even make one complete sentence without stopping. I want you to know that's completely normal. Every single fluent speaker you hear today was once in that same place. The key is to accept where you are and then commit to building small, consistent habits that push you forward a little every day. Imagine English like a small plant. You can't make it grow in one day, but if you give it sunlight, water, and care every day, it will grow stronger without you even noticing at first. Let's start with one of the most powerful habits, daily listening. Listening is the input your brain needs to get familiar with the sounds, rhythm, and patterns of English. I recommend choosing one source of slow, clear English every day and just letting yourself absorb it without pressure. It could be an audio lesson, a slow-paced YouTube video, or even a short conversation recording. As you listen, try not to translate every word. Just focus on understanding the main idea and letting your ears get comfortable with the sound of English. For example, I might say slowly, "I'm going to the store to buy some fruit." You repeat it in your head without translating. The more you do this, the more natural English will feel. Now, let's turn this into a little practice together. I'm going to say a sentence, and I want you to repeat it exactly as I say it. Don't change anything. Don't rush. Ready? Today is a beautiful day, and I feel happy to be learning English. One more time, slowly. Today is a beautiful day, and I feel happy to be learning English. Excellent. Now, imagine you're saying that to a friend. Say it with a smile in your voice, like you're sharing something positive. One of the best ways to speed up your progress is to combine listening with shadowing. Shadowing means you listen to a sentence in English and then you speak it immediately after, copying the speaker's rhythm and tone as closely as you can. This is different from just repeating words. You're training your mouth, your voice, and your brain to move together in real time. Let's try it now. I'll say a sentence, then you say it immediately after me. I'm learning something new every day. Again, I'm learning something new every day. Good. Now, let's make it slightly longer. I'm learning something new every day, and I'm proud of my progress. One more time. I'm learning something new every day, and I'm proud of my progress. Another important part of moving from beginner to advanced is learning to think in English. At first, you will naturally translate in your head, That's okay. But the sooner you start forming thoughts directly in English, the faster you'll become fluent. A simple exercise for this is to describe what you're doing right now in English. For example, if you're sitting at a table, you might think, I am sitting at my desk and I am listening to Natasha speak. You can do this with everything: cooking, walking, working, even waiting for a bus. The more you practice describing your actions in English, the more natural it will become to think in English without translation. Let's practice together right now. I'll give you a situation, and you try to describe it in your own words, in English. You are sitting in a cafe, drinking coffee, and watching people outside the window. How would you describe it? You might say, I am sitting in a cafe, drinking hot coffee, and watching people walk by. Now, let's add a feeling. I am sitting in a cafe, drinking hot coffee, and feeling relaxed as I watch people walk by. That extra detail makes your English sound more natural and expressive. Vocabulary building is also a key part of reaching fluency, but many learners make the mistake of memorizing long lists of random words. The problem is, if you don't see or use those words in real situations, you'll forget them quickly. Instead, learn words in context. This means you focus on words and phrases that come from something you've heard, read, or experienced in English. For example, if you hear the phrase, take your time in a TV show, learn it as a whole phrase and practice it in different sentences. Take your time, there's no rush. I'll wait, take your time. You can take your time to decide. By doing this, you remember not just the word, but also how it's actually used in real conversations. Another powerful tool is speaking with yourself. Yes, it might feel strange at first, but it's one of the best ways to practice without needing a partner. You can speak out loud about your plans for the day, describe what you see, or even imagine a conversation with someone. The more you do it, the more your brain gets used to producing English automatically. Here's a quick exercise you can try right now. Look around your room and describe 5 things you see in English. For example, I see a red chair in the corner. There's a blue book on the table. The window is open, and I can hear birds. My phone is on the desk, beside my laptop. The floor is clean and shiny. Simple sentences like these train your brain to think in English without pressure. One of the biggest challenges for learners moving from beginner to advanced is confidence. Confidence in speaking comes from 2 things: knowing the words and structures you need, and training your mouth and mind to use them without fear. You can have perfect grammar knowledge, but if you freeze when it's time to speak, you won't sound fluent. That's why you must combine knowledge learning with speaking practice every single day, even if it's just for a few minutes. Think of it like playing a sport. Reading about how to play basketball won't help you unless you actually hold the ball and practice shooting. Here's a practice you can try to build confidence. Choose a simple topic, like my favorite food, and speak about it for 1 full minute without stopping. Don't worry if you repeat yourself or make small mistakes. The goal is to keep speaking. You might say, "My favorite food is pizza. I like pizza because it has cheese, tomato sauce, and many toppings. I often eat pizza with my friends on the weekend. Sometimes I make pizza at home with vegetables and mushrooms. I like how it smells when it's cooking. Pizza makes me happy." Even if it feels repetitive, you're training your brain to stay active in English. Once you can do 1 minute, increase it to 2 minutes, then 3. The longer you can keep talking without stopping, the closer you get to thinking in English automatically. And remember, you can do this anywhere. You could be walking outside, waiting for a bus, or sitting at home, and just decide to talk about what you see or what you're feeling. Reading out loud is another secret weapon for fluency. Many learners only read silently, but reading aloud helps connect your eyes, brain, and mouth. It improves your pronunciation, strengthens your speaking muscles, and builds your confidence in saying complete sentences. You can choose anything you enjoy, a short article, a dialogue, a story, and read it slowly, clearly, and with expression. If you come across a word you don't know how to pronounce, check it, repeat it, and then read the whole sentence again. Over time, your reading voice will become smoother and more natural, and that carries over into real conversations. Let's do a short out-loud reading exercise together. I'll read a sentence slowly, and you repeat it with me. Every day I am getting better at speaking English. Again. Every day I am getting better at speaking English. Now, let's make it longer. Every day I am getting better at speaking English, and I feel more confident when I talk to other people. One more time. Every day I am getting better at speaking English, and I feel more confident when I talk to other people. Another area to focus on is pronunciation and intonation. Fluency is not only about the words you use, it's also about how you sound when you use them. English has a natural rhythm with stressed and unstressed syllables, rising and falling tones, and connected speech. When you listen to native speakers, notice how they don't pronounce every single word separately. They connect sounds, and sometimes even drop certain sounds in casual speech. For example, "I am going to" often becomes "I'm gonna" in spoken English. If you want to sound natural, you should learn to recognize and practice these patterns. Here's a small pronunciation practice for you. Repeat after me slowly. I'm gonna make some tea. Again. I'm gonna make some tea. Now, try it at normal speed. I'm gonna make some tea. You can replace the last part with other phrases. I'm gonna watch a movie. I'm gonna call my friend. This way, you're practicing real-life phrases, the way they're actually spoken. Writing in English every day will also push you forward, especially if you don't have many speaking opportunities. Keep a short daily journal where you write about your day, your thoughts, or your plans in English. It doesn't have to be long. Even 5 sentences are enough. This helps you think in English, build sentences, and notice grammar patterns. And if you read your writing out loud afterward, you turn it into a speaking exercise too. For example, you might write, "Today I went to the park. The weather was sunny and warm. I saw children playing and people walking their dogs. I bought ice cream and enjoyed it while sitting on a bench. It was a peaceful day." Reading that aloud gives you speaking and pronunciation practice without needing a conversation partner. Another tip for going from beginner to advanced is to use English in real-life tasks as much as possible. If you like cooking, follow a recipe in English. If you're interested in fitness, watch workout videos in English. If you enjoy games, switch them to English. The more you use English in activities you already love, the less it feels like study. This is one of the fastest ways to build natural to long-term fluency. Now, let's do a short describe and expand practice together. I'll give you a sentence, and your job is to add more detail to make it richer. The sentence is, I am reading a book. How can you expand it? You could say, I am reading a book about space and the universe. Or, I am reading a book in the evening while drinking tea. Or, I am reading a book that my friend recommended to me last week. Adding details not only makes your English sound more advanced, it also trains your brain to think creatively in English. One thing many learners underestimate is the importance of repeating what they have learned. Repetition is not boring, it's essential. Your brain needs to see, hear, and use a new word or structure many times before it becomes natural. Think of it like learning to ride a bicycle. You don't get on once and expect to ride perfectly. You practice, you repeat the same movements, and eventually, it becomes automatic. Language works exactly the same way. That's why you should review your vocabulary. Practice the same sentences in different ways, and revisit old lessons often. The more you repeat, the more confident you will feel in real conversations. Here's an example of how you can practice repetition without feeling bored. Choose a short sentence and say it in 5 different ways, changing only small details. Let's try with, I like walking in the park. You could say, I really like walking in the park. I like walking in the park on sunny days. I like walking in the park with my friends. I like walking in the park in the morning. I like walking in the park when it's quiet. You see, you are repeating the core structure, but adding variety. This helps you practice both fluency and flexibility. Another powerful technique is to use language islands. This means you prepare and memorize small chunks of speech about common topics in your life. For example, you might prepare a short introduction about yourself, a description of your job, or an explanation of your hobbies. When someone asks you about these topics, you can respond smoothly, without hesitation. Over time, you expand these islands and connect them, creating larger sections of fluent speech. Let's try one together. Imagine you're introducing yourself. You could say, Hi, my name is Alex. I live in Madrid, and I work as a graphic designer. In my free time, I enjoy hiking, reading, and cooking. Now, try adding more detail. Hi, my name is Alex. I live in Madrid, the capital of Spain, and I work as a graphic designer for a small marketing company. In my free time, I enjoy hiking in the mountains near my home, reading mystery novels, and cooking Italian food for my friends and family. From beginner to advanced, grammar is something you will always keep improving, but you don't have to study grammar in a heavy academic way. Focus on learning the grammar you actually need for speaking. For example, beginners should focus on present, past, and future tenses. As you progress, you can add conditionals, complex sentences, and more advanced structures. The key is to practice grammar in real sentences, not just in exercises. If you learn the present perfect tense, for example, don't just memorize the rule, use it in your daily conversations. You could say, I have never been to Canada. I have seen that movie before. I have just finished my homework. The more you use grammar in speaking, the faster it will become natural. Listening to yourself speak is also a very effective way to improve. You can record your voice while reading a text or speaking about a topic. Then, listen back to notice areas for improvement. At first, this might feel strange, but it's incredibly useful. You might notice that you speak too fast or that you don't pronoun. See certain words clearly. By identifying these areas, you can work on them directly. For example, if you notice you're not pronouncing these sounds correctly, you can practice words like think, through, this, and that slowly until you get them right. Let's do a quick pronunciation drill together. For the sounds, repeat after me slowly. Think, thought, through, three. Now for the voiced the sound. This, that, these, those. When you practice, put your tongue lightly between your teeth and push the air out for the soft th in think, for the harder th in this. Add a bit of voice to the sound. Another thing to remember is that fluency comes from balance. You need to balance listening, speaking, reading, and writing. If you focus only on listening, you might understand a lot, but struggle to speak. If you focus only on writing, you might write well, but have trouble with pronunciation. That's why I recommend creating a simple daily routine that includes all 4 skills, even in small amounts. For example, you might listen to a short English audio in the morning, speak for 5 minutes about your day, read 1 page of a book, and write 3 sentences in your journal. It doesn't have to be long, it just has to be consistent. Let's practice combining skills now. I'll give you a short story. First, listen. Yesterday, I went to the market to buy some fresh vegetables. I bought carrots, tomatoes, and spinach. On my way home, I met an old friend, and we talked for 10 minutes. Now, repeat the story after me. Then, try to write it down in your own words. Finally, speak it again, but change some details. For example, change the place or the things you bought. This type of combined practice helps your brain connect the skills and makes your learning much stronger. Immersion is also a key step for reaching an advanced level. Even if you can't live in an English-speaking country, you can create an English environment around yourself. Change your phone and computer settings to English. Follow English language social media accounts. Watch movies and shows without subtitles. And think about your daily activities in English. The more you surround yourself with the language, the more your brain will treat it as normal, and the faster your fluency will grow. Another important step in moving from beginner to advanced English is learning to adapt your language depending on the situation. This is called register, the difference between formal and informal speech. For example, the way you talk to a close friend is not the same as the way you talk in a job interview or a presentation. Knowing when to use casual language and when to use more formal expressions makes you sound much more natural and confident. For instance, with a friend you might say, "Hey, what's up?" But in a professional setting, you might say, "Good morning, how are you today?" Practicing both styles will prepare you for any kind of conversation. Let's do a quick exercise together. I'll give you a situation, and you think of two ways to say it, one informal and one formal. Situation: you're asking someone for help. Informal: can you give me a hand? Formal: could you please assist me with this? Another one, situation: you're telling someone you understand. Informal: got it. Formal: I understand. Or, I see what you mean. This awareness will help you sound more natural and appropriate in different environments. One mistake many learners make is speaking in a flat tone with no variation in pitch or emphasis. This can make even correct sentences sound unnatural. English is full of intonation patterns that signal meaning and emotion. For example, your voice often goes up at the end of a question, "Are you ready?" and goes down at the end of a statement, "I'm ready." Practicing these patterns will make our speech more expressive and easier to understand. You can train this by listening carefully to native speakers and imitating their melody, not just their words. Let's practice intonation with a simple phrase. Repeat after me in a question tone. You're coming with us? Now repeat it as a statement, with confidence. You're coming with us. Do you hear the difference? The rise in your voice at the end of the question signals uncertainty, while the drop at the end of the statement signals certainty. Small details like this are what make you sound like a more advanced speaker. Expanding your vocabulary with idioms and phrasal verbs will also make your English richer and more natural. Native speakers use them all the time, and understanding them will help you follow conversations more easily. For example, instead of just saying, "I'm very tired," you could say, "I'm worn out." Instead of "let's start," you could say, "let's get going." But remember, you don't need to learn every idiom at once. Choose a few, learn their meaning, and practice using them in your own sentences until they feel natural. For example, with "break the ice," you could say, "At the party, I told a joke to break the ice," or, "As a teacher, I use a fun game to break the ice with new students." Now let's do a short practice with phrasal verbs. The phrase "look after" means to take care of someone or something. Repeat after me. I look after my younger brother when my parents are busy. Again. Can you look after my plants while I'm away? Next, run out of means to have no more of something. Repeat. We ran out of milk, so I need to go to the store. Again. I ran out of time before I could finish the project. Practicing these in context will help you remember them better than memorizing them in a list. Another advanced skill is paraphrasing, saying the same idea in different words. This is useful when you can't remember a specific word or when you want to make your language more varied. For example, instead of saying, "I'm happy," you could say, "I'm feeling great," or "I'm in a good mood." Instead of "it's raining a lot," you could say, "it's pouring," or "we're having heavy rain." Being able to rephrase your thoughts will keep conversations flowing. Even if you don't have the exact word you want at the moment, here's a paraphrasing exercise for you. I'll give you a sentence, and you try to say it in a different way. Sentence: I like reading books. You could say, I enjoy reading books, or reading books is one of my hobbies. Another sentence: I don't have much time today. You could say, I'm short on time today, or my schedule is full today. This kind of practice expands your flexibility in speaking. It's also important to build listening skills for different accents. English is spoken all over the world, and you will hear many variations in pronunciation, speed, and even vocabulary. If you only practice listening to one accent, like American English, you might struggle when you hear British English, Australian English, or even other non-native accents. To prepare yourself, listen to a variety of voices and accents. You don't have to understand every single word. Focus on getting the main meaning and noticing the differences in sound. Here's a tip for training your ear. Choose a short audio clip in an accent that's different from what you usually hear. Listen to it several times, first for overall meaning, then for specific words, and finally to repeat it, sentence by sentence. This way, you improve both your listening and pronunciation at the same time. Over time, you'll feel more confident, no matter who you're speaking with. To truly move from beginner to advanced English, you also need to master the skill of active listening. Active listening means you're not just hearing the words, but really focusing on the meaning, the tone, and even the emotion behind them. When you listen actively, you notice how words are linked together, how certain sounds disappear in fast speech, and how speakers use pauses for emphasis. This helps you not only understand better, but also speak more naturally yourself. For example, in the sentence, "What are you going to do?" Many native speakers say it as, "What you gonna do?" Active listening helps you catch and understand these natural changes in real speech. Let's practice active listening right now. I'll say a sentence naturally, and I want you to repeat it exactly as you hear it, without changing it. I'm just gonna grab some coffee before we leave. Again, I'm just gonna grab some coffee before we leave. Notice how going to became gonna and how I am became I'm. These small adjustments are what make spoken English flow more smoothly. Another step toward fluency is mastering small talk. Some learners think small talk is unimportant, but in reality, it's the foundation of many conversations. It's how you connect with people, build trust, and create opportunities for deeper discussions. Small talk topics include the weather, daily routines, recent events, or shared experiences. If you can handle small talk confidently, you'll never feel lost. When someone starts a casual conversation with you, for example, you could say, "It's such a nice day today, isn't it?" Or, "I've been really busy with work lately. How about you?" These openers invite the other person to respond and keep the conversation going. Here's a small talk practice exercise. I'll give you a situation, and you think of one thing you could say. Situation, you're in an elevator. You're with a colleague. You might say, "The weather's been so unpredictable this week." Or, "I think the new project is going really well so far." Another situation. You're waiting in line at a cafe. You could say, "This place always smells amazing." Or, "Have you tried their chocolate cake? It's my favorite." By practicing these short lines, you'll be ready to start conversations anywhere. Fluency also requires learning to keep a conversation going. This means asking follow-up questions, showing interest, and adding your own ideas. If someone says, "I went to the beach last weekend," don't just reply, "That's nice." Instead, you could ask, "Which beach did you go to?" Or, "What was the weather like?" You could also share your own related experience, like, "I love going to the beach. Last summer, I went almost every weekend." This back and forth is what makes conversations feel alive and natural. Let's try a conversation building exercise. I'll give you a statement, and you respond with a follow-up question and a comment. Statement: I tried a new restaurant last night. You might say, "Oh, really? What kind of food do they serve? I love trying new places too." Statement: I've started going to the gym in the mornings. You could reply, "That's great. How do you find the energy so early? I usually feel sleepy in the morning." With this kind of practice, you'll never run out of things to say. One of the fastest ways to grow your fluency is to think in chunks rather than individual words. Chunks are groups of words that often go together in speech. For example, "Would you like a cup of tea?" is a chunk. So is "Let me think about it," or "I'll get back to you later." When you learn these ready-made phrases, you don't have to build each sentence word by word. You can just pull the whole phrase from memory. This makes your speech faster and more confident. You can start building your own list of chunks by noticing phrases you hear often and writing them down to practice later. Let's practice chunk learning. Repeat after me. How's it going? Again. How's it going? This is a common chunk for greeting someone casually. Now, it's up to you. Again. It's up to you. This means the decision is yours. Another, I'll let you know. Again. I'll let you know. It's a polite way to say, you will give someone information later. Practicing these as whole units will make your speaking more natural. Also, to move from beginner to advanced, you need to improve your listening speed. Native speakers often speak faster than learners expect, and it can be frustrating. At first, the best way to train is to start with slower audio and gradually increase the speed. You can also listen to the same audio multiple times, first slowly to understand the meaning, then faster to match real conversation speed. Over time, your brain adapts and processes English more quickly. Here's a quick speed listening drill. I'll read a short passage slowly first, then more quickly, and you try to follow along both times. Slow. This weekend, I'm planning to visit my cousin and spend some time in the countryside. Now, faster. This weekend, I'm planning to visit my cousin and spend some time in the countryside. By doing this regularly, you'll feel more comfortable when listening to real-life English at full speed. To keep improving toward advanced fluency, you should also focus on storytelling. Storytelling is one of the most powerful ways to connect with people in any language. When you tell a story, you're not just giving information, you're creating an emotional experience for the listener. Stories make your English more engaging, memorable, and natural. They also allow you to practice different tenses, descriptive language, and a variety of sentence structures in one exercise. For example, if you're telling a story about your first day at work, you might use the past simple to describe events, the past continuous to set the scene, and even the past perfect to show what happened before something else. Let's do a storytelling exercise together. I'll start a story, and you continue it out loud in your own words. Last Saturday, I woke up earlier than usual because I had an exciting plan for the day. I made myself a quick breakfast, put on my favorite clothes, and now, you add what happened next. Maybe you met a friend, traveled somewhere, or tried something new. The important thing is to keep going without worrying too much about mistakes. The more you tell stories, the more confident you'll be in using different grammar naturally. Another advanced skill is describing things in detail. Beginners often use short, simple sentences, which is fine at first. But as you progress, you should practice adding more details to make your speech richer and more interesting. For example, instead of saying, "I saw a dog in the park," you could say, "I saw a small brown dog in the park, wagging its tail and chasing a red ball across the grass." This not only improves your vocabulary, but also helps listeners imagine what you're talking about. You can practice by looking at an object or a picture and describing it in as much detail as possible. Here's a quick detail-building exercise. Look around your room and choose one object. First, say one simple sentence about it. There is a lamp on my desk. Now, add a detail. There is a tall, silver lamp on my desk. Add another detail. There is a tall, silver lamp on my desk, and it gives off a warm yellow light when I turn it on. The more details you add, the more advanced your English sounds. You can do this with places, people, or experiences as well. A common barrier learners face is fear of making mistakes. But mistakes are not a sign of failure, they are a sign of progress. Every time you make a mistake, you have a chance to learn something new. Native speakers make mistakes too, even in their own language. The important thing is to keep speaking and not stop yourself mid-sentence because you're worried about being perfect. Fluency comes from speaking freely, even if your grammar is not 100% correct every time. Over time, as you keep practicing, your accuracy will improve naturally. One technique to reduce hesitation is to use filler phrases. These are small expressions you can say while you're thinking about what to say next. They keep the conversation flowing and give you a moment to organize your thoughts. Examples include, "Well, let me think. You know, that's a good question." And, "Actually." For example, if someone asks you a question you need time to answer, you could say, "Well, let me think. I guess I would." This makes you sound more natural and confident, just like a native speaker. Let's practice with a simple Q&A. Question: What's your favorite season, and why? You could answer, "Well, I think my favorite season is autumn. Actually, I love the cool weather and the colorful leaves." Question: If you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you go? You might say, "That's a good question. I guess I would go to Japan because I'm interested in the culture and the food." These fillers make your speech smoother and more engaging. Another powerful habit is revisiting old material. Many learners focus only on new lessons and forget to review what they've already studied. But each time you review, you notice new things you didn't catch before. Maybe a phrase makes more sense now, or a grammar rule feels easier to apply. Regular review strengthens your memory and keeps your skills fresh. You can make a schedule to review a lesson after 1 day, then after 1 week, and then after 1 month. This technique, called spaced repetition, is proven to help with long-term learning. Finally, remember that learning from beginner to advanced is a journey, not a race. You will have days where everything feels easy and days where you feel stuck. That's normal. The key is to keep showing up every day, even if it's just for 10 minutes. Small, consistent steps will take you further than occasional big efforts. And the more you enjoy the process, listening to topics you love, speaking about your passions, and connecting with people, the faster you'll grow. As you keep moving toward advanced fluency, one of the most valuable habits you can develop is learning to summarize. Summarizing means taking a large amount of information and expressing it in a clear, simple way. This is a skill you use in real life when explaining something you've read, watched, or heard. It shows that you understand the main ideas and can communicate them efficiently. For example, if you read a long article about climate change, you could summarize it by saying, "It explains how human activities are causing global warming and suggests ways we can reduce carbon emissions." Being able to summarize well makes your speech organized and easy to follow. Let's try a quick summarizing practice. I'll give you a short passage, and then you say the main idea in 1 or 2 sentences. Passage. Yesterday, I met an old friend for lunch. We talked about our school days, shared updates about our lives, and laughed about funny memories. After lunch, we went for a walk in the park and enjoyed the sunny weather. Your summary might be, I met an old friend, and we caught up while enjoying a sunny day together. Practicing like this will help you respond more confidently in conversations, especially when someone asks you, "So, what happened?" Another step toward advanced speaking is expressing opinions and giving reasons. Beginners often just say yes or no without explaining, but in real conversations, people expect you to add more. For example, instead of just saying, "I like reading," you could say, "I like reading because it helps me relax and learn new things." Adding "because" and giving a reason makes your answers longer and more interesting. You can also use phrases like, "In my opinion," "I think that," "I believe," or "From my point of view," to start sharing your thoughts naturally. Here's an opinion practice. Question: do you prefer working in the morning or at night? You could answer, "I prefer working in the morning because I feel more focused and energetic." Question: should people learn a second language? You might say, "In my opinion, everyone should learn a second language because it opens up opportunities and helps you understand other cultures." By adding reasons, you not only practice speaking longer, but also learn to organize your thoughts clearly in English. It's also important to practice agreeing and disagreeing politely. In English, especially in professional or social settings, we often soften disagreement to keep conversations friendly. For example, instead of saying, "You're wrong," you could say, "I see your point, but I have a different perspective," or, "That's interesting, but I'm not sure I agree completely." Learning these softer expressions will help you handle debates and discussions without sounding rude. Likewise, when you agree, you can use phrases like, "That's true," "I completely agree," or "I think you're right about that." Let's do an agreement practice. Statement: learning English is only possible if you live in an English-speaking country. You could say, "I see your point, but I believe it's possible to learn anywhere if you practice regularly." Statement: it's better to study alone than in a group. You might respond, "That's interesting, but I enjoy studying in a group because we can share ideas and help each other." Practicing this skill will make you sound respectful and confident in discussions. Another area to focus on is expressing emotions and feelings. Beginners often use only basic words like happy, sad, or angry, but advanced speakers have a wider emotional vocabulary, which makes their communication richer and more precise. For example, instead of just happy, you might say excited, thrilled, pleased, or grateful. Instead of sad, you could say disappointed, upset, heartbroken, or frustrated. You don't have to memorize every word at once, just learn a few new ones and start using them in daily conversations. Here's an emotion vocabulary practice. Repeat after me. I'm thrilled to hear that news. Again. I'm thrilled to hear that news. Now. I was disappointed when my plans were canceled. Again. I was disappointed when my plans were canceled. By practicing these expressions, you'll find it easier to match your words to the exact feeling you want to share. To continue building fluency, it's useful to practice transitions between ideas. Transitions help your speech flow smoothly, instead of sounding like separate, unconnected sentences. For example, you can use, first of all, on the other hand, for example, as a result, and finally. These small phrases guide the listener through your thoughts and make you sound more organized. For instance, if you're explaining how to learn English, you might say, first of all, you need to practice regularly. For example, you can set aside 15 minutes a day to read or listen in English. On the other hand, if you only practice once a week, it's much harder to improve. Let's practice with a short explanation using transitions. First of all, I start my day with a healthy breakfast. For example, I eat fruit and oatmeal. After that, I take a short walk to get some fresh air. Finally, I begin my work feeling energized. Adding transitions like this will make your English smoother and easier to follow for the listener. Another powerful step in your journey from beginner to advanced is learning how to negotiate meaning when you don't understand something. Even advanced speakers sometimes miss a word or phrase, especially in noisy environments, or when talking to someone with a strong accent. The key is to avoid freezing and instead use strategies to keep the conversation going. You can ask for clarification with phrases like, "Sorry, could you say that again, please?" Or, "I'm not sure I understand. Could you explain?" You can also check your understanding by repeating part of what you heard. "So you mean we're meeting at 3 p.m., right?" These small techniques make you sound more confident and help you stay engaged in any conversation. Let's do a quick clarification practice. I'll say something unclear, and you respond politely. We'll need to adjust the schedule for tomorrow. You could reply, I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Did you say tomorrow? Another one. The meeting will be in the green room. You might say, I'm not sure I caught that. Did you mean the green room? Practicing this will make it easier to respond naturally in real life when you miss something. Fluency also depends on how well you can describe complex ideas simply. This is especially important when speaking to people who may not share your level of English. If you can break down a difficult topic into clear, simple language, you'll communicate effectively with almost anyone. For example, if you want to explain photosynthesis to someone who doesn't, to know the term, you could say, it's the way plants make their own food using sunlight, water, and air. This skill is also helpful in work situations when explaining tasks or instructions. Here's a simplification exercise. Imagine someone asks you what inflation means. You could say, it's when prices go up and the money you have buys less than before. Or, if they ask what remote work means, you could explain, it's when you work from home or another place instead of going to an office. This kind of explanation is easy to understand and shows strong communication skills. Another technique to strengthen fluency is mirroring. Mirroring means you repeat some of the words or phrases the other person uses in your reply. This makes conversations feel more connected and natural. For example, if someone says, I love going to the mountains on weekends, you could reply, oh, you love going to the mountains? That sounds amazing. What do you do there? By mirroring, you show interest and keep the conversation flowing without having to think too hard about what to say next. Let's try a mirroring drill. I'll give you a sentence, and you start your reply by repeating part of it. Sentence. I started learning Spanish last year. You might reply, you started learning Spanish last year? That's great. How is it going? Sentence. I just tried sushi for the first time. You could say, you tried sushi for the first time? How did you like it? This technique works in casual chats and even in professional discussions. To keep developing, you should also focus on mastering common conversation topics. There are certain subjects that come up again and again: work, travel, hobbies, family, food, and entertainment. If you prepare and practice talking about these in detail, you'll feel much more confident in real-life situations. For example, if the topic is travel, you can describe your favorite trip, a place you want to visit, or how you usually travel. If the topic is food, you can talk about your favorite dishes, cooking habits, or restaurants you enjoy. Let's practice with the topic of travel. I'll give you a question, and you answer in full sentences. Question. What's the most interesting place you've visited? You might say, the most interesting place I've visited is Istanbul. I loved the mix of history and modern life, the beautiful architecture, and the delicious food. Now, with the topic of food. Question. What's your favorite meal to cook? You could reply, my favorite meal to cook is pasta with homemade tomato sauce. I like adding fresh basil and garlic, and it makes the kitchen smell wonderful. By practicing these common topics, you'll always have something to say in a conversation. Another important step toward advanced fluency is refining your listening for details. Beginners often focus only on the main idea, but as you progress, you should train yourself to catch smaller details, numbers, names, dates, and specific descriptions. This is especially useful in meetings, lectures, or news reports. For example, instead of just hearing, "We're meeting next week," you want to catch, "We're meeting next Thursday at 3 p.m. in the conference room." Here's a detail listening drill. I'll say a short passage, and you try to repeat as many details as you can. On Saturday, June 10th, Maria is flying to London for a 3-day business trip, staying at the Parkside Hotel near the city center. What details did you catch? Date, Saturday, June 10th. Name, Maria. Destination, London. Length of trip, 3 days. Hotel, Parkside Hotel near the city center. Doing this regularly will sharpen your listening and memory skills at the same time. Another great way to push your English from good to advanced is by practicing anticipation. This means training yourself to guess what someone might say next, or predict the kind of information you'll hear. This skill keeps you more engaged and makes it easier to respond quick. Lie. For example, if you're listening to a friend telling you about their weekend and they say, "We went to the beach," and you might already expect they'll talk about swimming, relaxing, or enjoying the weather. Even if you guess wrong, your brain is still actively processing and preparing, which is exactly what you want when aiming for fluency. Let's try a quick anticipation practice. I'll start a sentence, and you imagine the ending before I say it. Yesterday, I went to the supermarket and bought. Pause, you think of an ending. Some fresh fruit and bread for breakfast. Another one. Next weekend, I'm planning to. Pause. Visit my grandparents in the countryside. This trains your brain to keep up with conversation speed and respond naturally. Building your speaking speed is also important, but speed doesn't mean rushing. It's about speaking smoothly, without too many pauses or fillers. You can improve this by practicing speaking for 1 or 2 minutes nonstop on a topic you know well. At first, you might pause a lot, but over time, you'll fill those pauses with natural connecting words instead of stopping completely. For example, if you're talking about your favorite hobby, you could say, "My favorite hobby is gardening. I started gardening about 2 years ago, and it has become a big part of my life. I enjoy planting flowers, growing vegetables, and spending time outside in the fresh air. It's relaxing, and it also keeps me active." Let's try it together. I'll give you a topic, and you speak about it for at least 30 seconds, without stopping. Topic. Describe your morning routine. You might start with, "I usually wake up around 7 o'clock in the morning. The first thing I do is make a cup of tea. Then I check my messages. After that, I take a quick shower and get dressed for the day. I like to eat a healthy breakfast, usually toast with eggs and some fruit, before starting work." Practicing like this every day will quickly make your speech more fluid. To move toward advanced communication, it's also essential to learn how to emphasize important words in a sentence. English speakers often stress certain words to show importance or emotion. For example, "I didn't say she stole the money," can have different meanings depending on which word is stressed. Stressing "I" means it was someone else who said it. Stressing "stole" means she may have done something else with the money. This skill helps you control your message and makes your speech sound more engaging. Here's a stress practice. Repeat the sentence after me, changing the stressed word each time. I didn't say she stole the money. Now stress I. I didn't say she stole the money. Now stress stole. I didn't say she stole the money. Notice how the meaning changes slightly each time. This technique will help you sound more expressive and clear. Also, as you move into advanced speaking, pay attention to linking sounds. In natural speech, words connect together so that the end of one word blends with the beginning of the next. For example, go on sounds like go on, and next time can sound like next time. Practicing linking makes your speech smoother and more natural. It also helps you understand native speakers better when they talk quickly. Let's practice linking. Repeat after me slowly. I want to eat. Now say it naturally. I want to eat. Slowly. Turn off the light. Naturally. Turn off the light. Slowly. What are you doing? Naturally. What you doing? By practicing these, you'll sound more fluent, and your listening skills will also improve. Another way to make fast progress is to create mini goals for yourself. Instead of just saying, I want to be fluent, set specific goals like, I will learn 5 new phrases this week and use them in conversation. Or, I will practice speaking for 10 minutes every day for the next month. Small, clear goals keep you motivated and give you a sense of achievement. Over time, these small wins build up into big improvements. Here's a goal-setting exercise. Think about one area of English you want to improve right now. Maybe it's pronunciation, vocabulary, or confidence in speaking. Write down one small, clear goal for the week. For example, I will practice 10 phrasal verbs and use each one in a sentence every day. Or, I will record myself speaking about my day every evening and listen back to find one thing to improve. These targeted efforts will move you forward much faster than vague study plans. Another important part of reaching an advanced level is learning to adapt your speech depending on who you're talking to. This is called adjusting your register, and it's a sign of true fluency. For example, if you're speaking to a close friend, you might use more casual language, contractions, and even slang. But if you're speaking in a formal setting, like a job interview or a presentation, you'll use more polite expressions, complete sentences, and avoid casual slang. Being able to switch between these styles means you can communicate effectively in any situation. Let's practice this skill together. Imagine you want to ask someone to wait a moment. In casual speech with a friend, you might say, hang on a sec. In a formal situation, you could say, could you please wait a moment? Another example, if you're thanking a friend for helping you, you might say, thanks a lot, that was awesome. In a formal situation, you could say, thank you very much for your assistance. Practicing both versions prepares you for all types of conversations. Another advanced communication skill is using emphasis and pauses to create impact. Pauses are powerful. They give your listener time to process what you're saying and make your speech sound more confident. And many learners try to fill every second with words, but sometimes saying less or saying it more slowly has a stronger effect. For example, if you're telling a story, you can pause before the most important part. I walked into the room, and there it was, the surprise I'd been waiting for. This creates suspense and keeps your listener engaged. Let's do a pause exercise. Repeat after me, keeping the pause where I put it. I looked out the window, and I couldn't believe what I saw. Again. I looked out the window, and I couldn't believe what I saw. Practicing intentional pauses like this will make your storytelling much more effective. Fluency also means being able to express the same idea in different ways, depending on the context. This flexibility helps when you forget a word or when you need to simplify for someone else. For example, if you can't remember the word exhausted, you can say very tired. If you can't remember delicious, you can say really tasty or it tastes great. By having alternative expressions ready, you can keep speaking without hesitation. Let's do a quick substitution practice. I'll give you a word, and you think of another way to say it. Word. Happy. You could say glad, pleased, or delighted. Word. Big. You could say large, huge, or massive. Word. Beautiful. You might say lovely, pretty, or gorgeous. This skill will make your English sound richer and help you avoid repetition. Another step toward advanced speaking is being able to give clear instructions. This is especially important in work situations or when helping someone understand a process. Clear instructions are short, direct, and often use sequence words like first, next, then, and finally. For example, if you're explaining how to make tea, you could say, first, boil some water. Next, put the tea bag in a cup. Then, pour the hot water into the cup. Finally, wait a few minutes before drinking. This clear structure makes it easy for anyone to follow you. Our instructions. Let's practice giving instructions. I'll give you a task, and you explain how to do it. Task. How to send an email. You might say, first, open your email program. Next, click on Compose. Then, type the recipient's address, the subject, and your message. Finally, click Send. Practicing like this will improve your clarity and confidence. Finally, an advanced speaker can adapt to unexpected changes in a conversation. Sometimes people change topics suddenly, or they might ask you something you weren't prepared for. In these moments, using transition phrases helps you move smoothly into the new topic. Phrases like, that reminds me of, speaking of, or by the way, can make topic changes sound natural. For example, if someone is talking about food and you remember a funny story about cooking, you can say, speaking of food, I once tried to make a cake and completely forgot the sugar. This keeps the conversation flowing and shows you can handle changes easily. As you approach advanced fluency, it's also important to be able to handle conversations that go deeper than everyday small talk. This means discussing abstract topics like goals, dreams, culture, opinions, and even world events. These conversations require more precise vocabulary and the ability to explain your thoughts clearly. For example, instead of simply saying, "I want to learn English to get a job," you might say, "I want to improve my English so I can expand my career opportunities, work in an international environment, and communicate confidently with colleagues from around the world." The more detail you add, the more professional and advanced you sound. One way to practice deeper discussions is through question expansion. Take a simple question like, "What do you do?" and think of a longer, more complete answer. Instead of, "I'm a student," you could say, "I'm a university student majoring in business, and I'm currently working on a project about marketing strategies." This shows not only your fluency, but also your ability to communicate complex ideas. Another advanced skill is telling personal experiences in a way that feels conversational, not like reading a textbook. Use natural connectors like "and then," "after that," "so," and "because." For example, last summer I traveled to Italy. I visited Rome first, and then I went to Florence. After that, I spent a few days in Venice because I'd always wanted to see the canals. Notice how this feels more like real conversation than a list of facts. Let's practice storytelling with connectors. Topic: a memorable day in your life. You might say, "One of the most memorable days of my life was my graduation day. I woke up early because I was too excited to sleep. When I arrived at the ceremony, I saw all my friends in their gowns, and we took lots of photos. After that, my family and I went to a nice restaurant to celebrate." By adding details and smooth transitions, you make your English sound fluent and engaging. At an advanced level, you should also be able to express uncertainty and possibility politely. In English, we often soften statements when we're not 100% sure. For example, instead of saying, "It will rain tomorrow," you might say, "It might rain tomorrow," or "There's a chance it will rain tomorrow." You can also use phrases like, "I'm not entirely sure, but it seems like," or "I would guess that." This helps you sound more natural and respectful in conversation. Here's a short uncertainty practice. Repeat after me. "I'm not entirely sure, but I think the meeting is at 10 a.m. Again. "It seems like she's enjoying the new job." "There's a chance we'll have to reschedule." Using these phrases will help you in both casual and professional contexts. Another advanced skill is summarizing someone else's point before responding. This shows you were listening carefully and helps avoid misunderstandings. For example, if someone says, "I think we should focus on marketing before launching the product," you could respond, "So you're saying we should work on marketing first and then launch? I can see how that could help." This technique keeps conversations clear and shows respect for the other person's ideas. Finally, remember that becoming fluent from beginner to advanced is not just about how much English you know, it's about how consistently you use it. Set aside time each day to listen, speak, read, and write. Use English in real situations, even if it's just talking to yourself while cooking or writing your to-do list in English. Celebrate small wins, like using a new phrase correctly or understanding a fast conversation. And don't forget to enjoy the journey. Learning a language opens doors to new friendships, opportunities, and experiences that can change your life. So, as you keep practicing, remember to listen actively, speak daily, read widely, write often, and push yourself to try new topics and situations. Keep building your vocabulary in context. Repeat phrases until they feel natural. And most importantly, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Every mistake is a step forward. And with every word you speak, you're not just learning English, you're becoming the confident, advanced communicator you've always wanted to be. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I hope you've enjoyed this journey from beginner to advanced fluency, and that you've found ideas and exercises you can start using right away. If you enjoyed this lesson and want to keep improving with me, make sure you subscribe to the channel so we can continue learning together every week. Take care, keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next lesson.